so I call it be your own light, because this phenomena in really helps us to sort of enlighten ourselves, and so the there are some fundamental sort of tenets of this particular attitude. So like for every attitude there are some traits, no? So similarly here also there are some traits which are sort of key to this. So the most fundamental trait is the observation, that how we should make observations and how we should not assume things. So to sort of motivate the fellows about this particular thing, what is like how to differentiate between the assumption and how to actually observe things. So we designed something called a balloon experiment. Darshan, if you can move to the next slide. So uh, yeah, Darshan, if you can move to the next slide. So in the balloon experiment, we ask kids that what is there inside the balloon. So most of them say there's air inside the balloon. But what made them say that there is air
नेक्स्ट
inside
स्लाइड दिख
the
रहा है
balloon?
क्या? मैंने किया है नेक्स्ट स्लाइड,
Yes,
सॉरी.
yes, that's sure. And guys, also one request: if you have any queries or some questions or some observation, or if you want to make any comment, just please interrupt me. Feel free to interrupt. More than happy to take any questions and concerns, and to hear from you guys. So this balloon experiment is just to motivate them about the observation and how sort of at times we assume things without even noticing that we have made an assumption. Okay, so when I ask them that what is inside the balloon, most of them will say there is air inside the balloon. Okay, and it is very interesting when you do it physically, going to the classroom and in-person interaction, it really works wonders. So so without thinking, they like even the teachers used to say that there's air inside the balloon. Okay, but then what made them say? Then we used to have this discussion that how you have sort of assumed without even observing that there is air inside the balloon. It can be something else. It can be some other gas. It can be hydrogen, helium, or it can only be nitrogen or whatnot. So because air is something which is, we know that air is like some 21% oxygen, 71% nitrogen, and all those things. So yeah, so this is this experiment sort of motivates sort of them to sort of observe things and not to make assumptions. Darshana, if you can please move to the next slide. And Srishti, if you want, please interrupt and make comments and share your 2 cents.
Yeah. Can you just Sagar ask control so that you can just do the next slide by yourself? Would be just easier for you.
No, I cannot, because there is some issue with my Teams, Srishti.
Oh, okay,
I
okay.
have not, the request control button is also disabled.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So then I used to do this experiment using the balloons. So I used to ask kids like what is their assumption that this balloon, when I put this balloon on the top of this flame, how much probable like time it will take to burst the balloon, and what will happen to the balloon basically. So they will say some some random things that this will happen, it will burst in 5 minutes. Some will say it will burst in, let's say 1 minute and 30 seconds and things like that. So then so we used to put like different balloons, like one balloon where there is air inside the balloon. So Darshana, if you can play this video just to sort of, thank you Darshana.
Is the sound coming? Like I don't think the voice is coming. Just give me a minute, huh? एक second. And Sagar, then you request control उसके बाद. Just give me a minute.
Okay. We have these balloons. The sound is coming. We'll see that that what will happen if you put these balloons on the flame. So let's see. So what do you think what will happen if I put this balloon on the flame? Okay, let's check. So it will burst. Now we will see. So similarly, we will use another balloon and we'll put water inside that balloon, and then probably we will sort of appreciate the phenomena that because that water balloon will take more time. So why take more time? Because of the the capacity of water to store heat, and so while explaining all these phenomena, I think it's better to avoid any scientific jargons. Use very simple terminologies and day-to-day words without going into, like, for example, the specific heat of water. We need not to tell them that specific heat of water or something. These concepts probably sort of confuses at times, because right now we are appreciating the idea of scientific temper and we don't want to go into jargons and all. We are sort of motivating them to rely on their senses more, and deduce the phenomena based on what they feel and what they think about it, rather than what is written in on some book. Yeah, Darshu, please play. What will happen to the balloon when we keep it again on the flame? This time, let's see. This balloon is also the same material. So this balloon, it take a long time, and using this, simple experiment, we can also explain that why the temperature of the coastal belt, it's remain almost constant throughout the year. Okay, so it's just that we have to sort of motivate them to use the fundamental knowledge to extrapolate to the to the more complicated phenomena which are happening. So next slide, Darshana, please. So I'm not able to request control. Okay. So now this is another sort of because kids connect well with the songs. So yeah. क्यों झूमे है गगन, क्यों झूमे है गगन, क्यों मचलता है मन, हाँ तुम जानो न हम. So yeah, this is another sort of we can ask kids to like, what did they see, what is these Amisha Patel or Hrithik Roshan are doing. So they will give you all sorts of observation, that they have observed this, they have observed that. So last time there was a very interesting discussion around this particular video. So so one of the observation is that probably that they are also asking questions. So we are conveying two messages, that how to observe and what is the importance of asking questions. So so for example इसने पूछा है क्यों मचलता है मन. So because of some kind of agitations. क्यों चलती है पवन? Because of the pressure difference, right? So we can explain, like, it depends on the creativity of the kids and how we are able to inculcate this value in our fellows. So they may also link the unrest, the social unrest, probably even the Arab Spring, to this phenomena, that why Arab Spring happened, because they feel there's some kind of difference. They feel differentiation, and that's why they started revolting and things like that. So it is up to their, ability to know how. Now it's their canvas. We just have their colors. Basically, we have to provide that canvas to them, and they should be free to paint their own sort of paintings, basically. Yeah, Darshana, please next slide. So yeah, this is just to sort of motivate them, why it is important to ask questions, because it's a source of all the knowledge which we can see around us. Darshana, please skip next slide. Next slide. So this is which sort of I call it a friendship model, because these are the best sort of these interrogations are the best friends which we can have. They sort of help us to become better person, better human being, and they sort of are with us every time. So just to encourage kids to be friends with these interrogations, I call it a friendship model. Yeah, next slide, Darshana. So yeah, then so we can also tell them that what are the resources they should refer, including the laboratory books, internet, mentors, teachers, and the most important resource is their own senses and their acquired knowledge. So see, the advantage of relying on your senses and acquired knowledge is that there may be problems with the acquired knowledge, but then if we start thinking independently, we will correct that acquired knowledge. So like the way from Newton we got Einstein, and then the quantum mechanics. So basically, we can say that scientists are also storytellers. So in every sort of generation, there are one scientist, they give you a narrative, and we sort of all agree because that particular narrative satisfy all the given conditions at that particular time. But then we stretch the boundaries of truth, we get some new narratives, and then further we get some new narratives. So these narratives, sort of we keep on increasing or stretching the boundaries of truth as we learn more and more. So our fellows can also add to that pool, and they can also contribute in stretching the boundaries of truth. So this is just to motivate them, like why it is important to rely on the senses and the acquired knowledge. And there are other resources, but I think we should encourage them to first think independently rather than referring internet, which most of us do very easily these days. We just Google everything, and I think that sort of hampers our mental progression in some sense. Yeah, thanks. That's the next slide. So this is another example, to motivate them about the importance of hypothesis and testing the hypothesis. So so if we say 3 is an odd number, it's a prime number as well. So if Darshana, if you can please skip. So then we can ask that what about what about 5, what about 7? Okay, so they will see that so most like prime numbers are odd. Okay, so if we go like this, we will figure out that from 3 to probably infinite, we will find out that all the prime numbers are odd. But there's only one case, if we miss that case, we can very easily form this theory that all prime numbers are odd, and that one unique case of 2 is still there, which says that no, that all prime numbers are not odd. So just to tell them or motivate them about the importance of one possibility which can negate the entire theory, and why it is important to have that kind of acceptance also. So this phenomena, of observing, forming hypotheses, asking questions, testing your hypothesis, and things like that, is we can call it scientific temper, and yeah, so just to motivate them about importance of observation and understanding the difference between perception and reality. So because when we play cricket, in gully cricket, or in probably even in the domestic settings or grounds, at a local level, so generally batsman changes the ends. Okay, but in reality, when you go to see a cricket match, you understand that it is not the batsman who are changing the end, but the bowlers who are changing the ends. Okay, and there are reasons that why bowlers are changing ends, because there is wind speed, there is all sorts of things are there. So this example is just to sort of motivate them about understanding the difference between what you perceive and what is the reality. So yeah. So the next in the next slide it comes even better. Sorry, I couldn't find a very good video clip for the women's cricket, but for the men's cricket there is one. Yeah. So in this, if you see, Chris Gayle is bowling in the right hand. a left-hand batsman is batting, but in the next ball, the right-hand batsman will bowl, and a fast bowler is bowling. So it appears that the batsmen are changing ends, but the reality is
Yuvraj Singh needs to retain strength. Oh! End of the over. Patel has to take the last over. 11 needed off 6 deliveries. 11 on the last over. The West Indies need a wicket.
So see the difference.
They'll get the single. Yuvraj comes into the
So
strike.
it appears that the batsmen are changing ends, but in reality, bowlers are changing ends. Yeah. Next slide. So, having scientific temper and spirit of inquiry is one of the fundamental duties which is mentioned in Article 51A of the Indian Constitution. Yeah. So one can consider themselves patriot if they sort of have this value. And it is actually very patriotic in the sense that if you have scientific temper, you will ask questions like, why there is no electricity in some villages, why the buses are not, why the hospitals are not sort of, working. So probably it is an integral component of a good, of a life of a good citizen as well. Yeah. Next slide, please. So this is tricky basically, so what is the relation between education and scientific temper? So they're not necessarily very, closely correlated. So, so to the best of, my experience, I've seen people having, sort of quote unquote scientific designations, but, they sort of lack in the attitude of scientific temper. So how we can practice it? We can question, we can verify, and we can re-question and then repeat this process. Thanks. Next, Darshana. Friendship model again. Next. So you can go to the next slide, Darshana. So again, this example, like as we go up in atmosphere to till some height, the temperature, decreases. Although we are moving closer to the sun, to the source of energy. Then why it is happening? Okay, this is interesting, and then people have all sorts of explanation for this as well. But then but when you ask this question, you will sort of understand that what kind of waves, what kind of frequency component our atmosphere is absorbing, what kind of reflections are happening from the ground, and large wave, small wave, all those things. But try to explain this in a very fundamental language, rather than using some difficult ideas. So this question can also sort of motivate them to see that how it is important to observe and ask questions. Next slide, please, Darshana. So yeah, this is the process which we all are aware, that observe, hypothesize, predict, and then verify it, modify or accept, and things like that. So this is a sort of a flow chart of a typical scientific analysis. Darshana, next slide. So what are the prerequisites of this attitude? I think there's only one prerequisite, which is curiosity, and we should encourage our fellows to be as curious as possible. Childlike curiosity, basically. Next. So yeah, so we can also take some case studies, but we have to be very careful, while taking the case studies, because when we are conveying this idea for the first time, so it sort of there are many conflicts with their existing beliefs and their existing ideas. So we have to be very careful, I think, to not to touch some sensitive issue at this time when we are just introducing them with this idea in a very I think we should try to introduce the idea in the purest form. So but if they themselves go in that way, so we have to sort of understand and tackle accordingly. But while conveying the idea, it is very important to take right kind of case studies, not to get into the belief system or religion and things like that. So these are the probably like most common sort of belief around COVID-19. That some media, these days, they sort of in this current post-truth era, they are sort of come up with new sort of facts and new information, news, etc. So how to sort of decipher it, how to make sense out of it, and things like that. We can take some case studies. These are just some, we have Srishti and I, we just mentioned here, but you're free to choose some other good case studies. And I think Srishti suggested these two are very good references which you can refer. I myself have read this paper on from Mr. Jagir, that it is really nice. And other things, Srishti, if you want to add here, please.
Yeah, you covered most of the thing, and yeah, these are 3 links. Mostly, if you are more curious about scientific temperament in general, so Sir Jagidar covers like the fake and how religious activities affect how our beliefs in politics or system affects. So it just covers the whole society and the science and how it comes together. So it's a very good read. If you get time, please do so. And the next link is more on the it's one of the links shared by one of the mentor actually in when we were doing the training. So where you have certain kinds of set questions there, and it's just to pick if the article is fake or not, or is the source is okay or not. So they're like systematic step-by-step questions, and where person can figure out if you are actually dealing with fake news or you are dealing with actual genuine authentic news or not. And the next article is from the PNAS. It got recently published. Recently means 2018, not very recent, but still. It was both. It's based on the U.S. population and the research based on that. But there's always few things that we can pick up and talk about. If you again, these are just the links that one can go about. Yep, we can go to next slide.
Srishti, should I or you want to?
Sure, yeah, continue. I'll just pitch in later.
So Srishti and I, based on our experience, we feel that there are some good practices which a mentor can have while conveying this idea of scientific temper, because kids, the fellows tend to go to religion and things like their belief system. So and it becomes very difficult then, because they have their own ideas and beliefs, which I think we all respect that. But then while conveying this idea, it becomes very difficult when those things come in picture, because it's huge baggage of 15-20 years. So it's better to not touch that. And we it would be great if we try to inculcate this value of scientific temper in them, and try to motivate them that it's not restricted to science and how it is a way of life, and we can use it in different spheres of life as well. And acceptance is a very important attribute which comes with this. If we actually have scientific temperament, then there are high probability that we'll have more acceptance. And so generally when we talk about science, it's more about true and falses, zeros and ones, but there is a gray area also between the truth and falses. So how to appreciate that, and how to always have that skeptical attitude towards things, and how to have that attitude to accept the diversity of thoughts and diversities of ideas. So yeah, that is also very important. And while doing all these exercise or practicing scientific temperament, I think patience plays a very critical role, because at times it's a very patient exercise and takes lot of time and energy and efforts to sort of understand some phenomena. And when it comes to particularly to this discipline of science, then we have example like probably you have heard the stories of Faraday keeping a magnet and everything with him for around 15-20 years. Similarly, Kepler showing patience for the third law of around 19 years and things like that. And there are in other spheres also, when we apply this thinking, we need to be very patient, and so that patience comes really handy if we have that. Yeah, Darshana, next slide, please. So while having this, I was reading in the group that there is one mentor. She has. I'm not able to. I was not able to read the entire stuff, but there was some good news that somebody was doing something great in the communicating science fair. So it is very important to convey the ideas and your observations and whatever you feel about a phenomena. So that is also an important bit of this exercise. So one should be clear, concise, and coherent about the whatever explanation they are coming up with, and the central idea which they want to convey, and it should be backed by proper data, facts, research, and things like that. So Darshana, next slide, please. So Shristi, if you want to explain this particular slide.
Yeah, I mean, this is just the reference given here. It's also put it in the curriculum, just how to have a flow in the presentation when all the mentees will be putting up their observation and everything, which we will explain in the next slide how the assignment would be. So it's just what is the main topic, a basic introduction that has to be covered, experimental details, or if there was no experimentation done, like what was done to support the hypothesis they had previously, and what are the qualitative quantitative results if there are any, and the inference drawn. Then you conclude and have a perspective, like what you're looking for the further thing or future aspect. And the acknowledgement is just the general idea of acknowledging your group and mentor and everything. And take home message if the presentation is too big, which I don't think would be the case in this scenario, but it's always good to have a take home message if you have a 20 minutes plus presentation or something like that. So these are just the basic ideas of creating a good scientific presentation, and how to discuss these points with the mentees, so they also understand how to create a good story from the presentation, what all is required, what is necessary to include, and what should be there in a nice presentation when you are conveying your idea in a conference, or even when you are conveying an idea in somewhere, someplace, scientific idea. Yeah. Next slide. I think that it just highlights the idea of the assignment. So because so this is like 2 weeks task, and we didn't want to put it too overwhelming over the mentors as well as on the mentees. So we broke the task in multiple steps. The first 2-3 days or 4 days can be about every mentee in your group can come up with their own individual observations that they are curious about, any peculiar thing that strikes them, and they can have like a GD around any one observation, everybody, or all observation, however the time permits. So all mentees discuss their curious observation as a GD, like group discussion when you do. And this is and this is the time where all the mentors are talking about the importance of scientific temperament, the friendship model that Sagar introduced, and then scientific methodology, how it should be, and all those things, inculcating the idea of scientific temperament and the attitude that we should carry, not just in science, but in general, in all spheres of life. Basically, it's an attitude of life. And so behind this is what the mentor's task would be, to have these kind of discussions with them. And then after these 3-4 days, when you feel that yes, they are understanding the idea of curiosity and questioning things and how they are discussing, then all 5 together, then we'll move on to the next slide, which shows the idea of how to do a group activity. So in the group activity, what would be the task? If you have 5 people or 6 people, all can come up with one observation, and the observation can be either mentors can discuss with mentees, or mentees can decide what is the one school observation they want to think about or want to experiment and want to see themselves as a group. It's like a collaboration task. So they will do this together and they perform the experiments, build their hypotheses, then they do literature search, which mentors will help them accordingly. And the whole thing goes, and then they try to draw the inference from their experimentations and the literature that they have researched or searched around. And they make a presentation, which was before 2 slides, we saw the flow of the presentation. And then if time permits, the whole group with the mentor can present, like the whole group can present to the mentor, and mentor can record the whole presentation, and it would be a nice productive task at the end of the day, that you have a presentation, scientific presentation, and the video in hand. So yeah, if you have any question related to the flow or the assignment, we are here and yeah, open to you guys.
Would be very happy to take concerns, queries, questions.
So in my group, the bunch of ladies are all, some of them are from different backgrounds. So some are from IT, some are from some science, physics or something, somebody is from something else. So how do I get them to, get together on something which all of them find it meaningful?
Yeah, it's a, I know it could be a task, but especially when you have different backgrounds in the group. But they can always come up with the observations and they can decide within themselves about what observation is suits everyone and all are curious about. That would be one thing. Or like last time when I had a group of 10 girls, some were physics, some were bio, some were chemistry, but eventually they shared all the observations in one single sheet. These are our observations we are curious about, and they themselves pick up like, oh, let's talk about this first, this one, and that's how they carry on. And if it goes to really to the point that you are not able to fix or pick your problem, it's just a suggestion, but feel free to do other things. I can just write down on the chits all the observations and just pick a random, like a lucky draw. This is the one that we should work with. Because at the end of the day, the idea is about understanding how do you communicate and understanding the scientific methodology behind it and what it goes behind all these phenomena and things and why they are important the way they are defined, because it's not something new, it's going on from ages, and that's how it is done. And then for a particular scientific project, which will be the phase 2 after this, they have all the things set. It's like a setting a platform for them, what all goes in doing an experiment, what all goes in doing the research and looking for scientific papers and all those things, so that they are ready when they move to phase 2 of this Kalpana, where they will do like experiments and defined experiments and all those things in a more in depth. Because right now it's just 2 weeks, then they're dealing with 8 weeks.
So in this current exercise with us, is it mandatory that they have to do an experiment, or it could be just a conceptual thing which they think through?
Not at all. Like it is not a mandatory thing, because there are many. Like I can give you an example. There were like last time some group was working with the cloud formation and everything. So they just clicked some photos and shared. And then there was one group who was working on when we move, our hands move in the opposite direction of our legs. So here there is not much of experimentation. It's more of like understanding the fundamentals and how it is supported, and if there is certain research going on, and which we found that there were still people working on it and figuring out why do we move hands opposite to how our legs move, which was very interesting. Even I was not aware of it. So it can be anything, and it can be supported by photos or anything, or it can be just the hypothesis from the literature and how people decide and understand the fundamental basics of that problem, basically. If was clear, let me know.
And this whole collaboration between all of them, because they're all, at least in my group, I have not seen them, they're all from different places. So I have not either created an opportunity nor have I seen them actually collaborate between themselves so far.
Yeah.
All the collaboration, whatever is happening through me.
Okay.
So when they are going to do this, so what is expected, that they should just figure out how to collaborate and go ahead and do it themselves, or they need facilitation around that? Because they're all in different places, different subjects, different years. Some are having exams, some are not having exams. So, it's a motley group of people who are all
Yeah, I do understand, but that's the actually the task that we want to give them, that they understand the idea of collaboration and how to exchange scientific ideas among themselves, how to question each other and not just take it on the face value if somebody is saying this is what it is, but question it,
so
understand.
so
Yeah.
so the instruction to them has to be that you figure out how to collaborate and then you please take charge and do it yourself.
You can be there. So I just want to put it as mentors. Now the role of a mentor is like of a supervisor here, like in labs or like wherever we are working, there's always a supervisor. So all the mentors here will be acting like a supervisor, where if you always have a constant check on their discussions. If it is going little haywire, mentor is there to support them or question them, are you really thinking in a correct sense? Like questioning, it's more from the questioning side of a mentor rather than giving the answer, because it's their duty to figure out the answers or understand the basics of it. So the supervisor role would be mentors, like engaging them in the conversation, figuring out questions and poking them with the idea of curiosity, why this happens this way, why not this way, can we think some other idea. So it's all about they have, so that we start forming these neural networks in their head, that that's how it should be done, that's how you question each other, that's how you take it. So it's that kind of a process of a mentor. Darshna, Sagar.
Why I'm asking some of this is
Yeah.
today only I had my session on this communication where I had given them an assignment to write something and speak.
Mhm.
And because it was on communication, I was sort of emphasizing to them that communication is also about listening, is about commenting, is about giving critical inputs. But I found them very, reserved in giving any comments whatsoever
Mhm.
to each other. So maybe my fault of I couldn't get them to do it, but I'm just saying that was what I saw.
Yeah.
Despite me prodding them like anything to give some inputs, good or bad, doesn't matter. But
Mhm.
I said it's part of communication where you are listening to somebody and now you are commenting on that somebody.
Yes.
But if suddenly when I've seen them this week, hardly talk to each other in terms of giving input, suddenly to expect them to go on the other end of the spectrum where they are collaborating, I don't know, to me it looks like a leap of faith, that's all.
Yes. Darshna, do you want to add something, and then I can add my thought?
Yeah, I think so. I agree with Bhaskar's dilemma, and so last time one of the mentors had to drop out, so I had to do the mentoring for one of the groups as well, and I faced a similar challenge. It did require a lot of nudging from my end, but then I was like, we have no other option. Like, I mean, girls, you just have to do it. Like, I mean, it was very interesting. So, for example, the way I did this whole observation exercise is like I made a table, and then and I said, okay, I put a name for everybody in the like sheet or Google Doc, wherever you want to make that, and I said, okay, start putting your observations here so that we know. And then at the end of the day, you ask like each one of them to name one observation which they liked from the all other people. So that sort of gave an icebreaker in my case. Like this girl gave 10 observations, and then there were other people who gave other 10 observations, and so on and so forth. So this particular person, I said, go and read all other observations and pick one of the observations that stands out to you the most compared to other people. And similar exercise other people also did. So I had to think a bit more creatively, and then it didn't happen in my group, but other groups, like the way we did was we had to split the group into two because there were 10. So we said, okay, make 5 subgroups and then discuss your observations and make a hypothesis. And when we were meeting, and I said, I won't talk, it is you who has to talk now. So you decide amongst yourself how you're going to do it. And I would expect that you people do a call amongst yourself and see how it is going. And I know what you mean by leap of faith, but it could be done. Like, and if it does not happen, then of course, as mentors, we slip in. So for me, one group was quite active, the other group was not talking at all. So I had to sort of call them, and I'm like, okay, girls, let's have a call. I want to hear you all now. Did you read other people's observations and all? So that's what I had to use. And yeah, apart from that, I personally don't have any other expectations, but I would say the way the other group interacted, the first group, it did surprise me. So like to what extent they went. So that was interesting thing for me to also see, like how completely unknown people who haven't been talking to each other much, but when they were given a group task, they actually did it. So yeah, that's it.
I just want to share one thing. Anushila, yes, go ahead, and then we can.
So I had a very similar concern as Bhaskar, but I think so. Today during our session, I asked each of them to share some observations, and then eventually they will also come up with 2 observations each, present it in our next meeting, and then as a group I ask them to vote for the observation that they all want to follow, whichever observation gets most votes. Then they would start working as a team. So the next meeting, I left it entirely up to them on the presentation, discussion, and everything. And I told them I'm going to be only like watching. So we'll see how that goes. But the other thing I suggested, just to nudge them to try to network and collaborate more, is try to find out people who are in similar field, not just in the group of the group they are in, but with the entire network of Kalpana Fellows. So some people have like started making WhatsApp groups with like other biotech students in the Kalpana Fellows, among the Kalpana Fellows, and I'm like trying to encourage them that way to build a supportive network and learn how to collaborate.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I'll just share quick one thing that I did and might give you guys some idea and might be helpful. Can you see my screen? If yes, please do tell me.
Yes.
Okay, so this is like sort of a presentation we did, and this is like last year how I did, and again sharing like question every time. And here we sort of, when I first discussed with them, we discussed about surface tension and everything. So we did like everybody started. Here is just the video. I hope it plays. If not, it doesn't matter. But we did like 2-3 experiments, and I corroborated with their experiment, and then we put into the idea of discussion. So then I sort of created an Excel sheet for them, like okay, all the groups, because I had 10 students, I divided into 5 each. So the group A would be like having these girls, and they come with all these questions, and then they discuss with each other one question from everybody. That's what they discussed. And the same with group B. Group B was little slow and in discussion, but at least they came up with one question or something. So again, they discuss about why, like if we mix salt in Sprite, what happens, or fish got thirsty, what do the fish got get thirsty in water, and all these things. We put everything together so that everybody can see each other's idea. And then we asked about the question that they picked about why do you think this is the problem, or what do you think your hypothesis would be. And that's how it goes on, and they did some experiment just to understand what's happening. This is all like those 2 3 4 days, because we were still not having any particular one observation to look for. Then everybody came with their detailed inferences about why this happens, what leads to what. And everybody can see, everybody, like sometimes, like let's say these are question marks again against Ankita or Neha Sanika. They didn't put much of inferences, but then there was some discussions they put in, so which was again helpful. So I cannot expect too much up with from everyone, but some people did it. And then we had like GD or discussion about why, like whatever experiment they were running, and then from that experiment I had one curious question. Oh, this is the one thing that you are running, what about this particular problem? Or so they start thinking about. And even so this GD was among all, so that everybody, even from different group, they can interact with each other and give their thought process, how things happen and why they think that would be, because everybody is from different backgrounds, so everybody has different ideas of how to give an answer and what to say and what's happening. So that's how the whole thing was done, and all the experiments were done, and you'll find. And then I also asked them, do you like this kind of activity, or what did you learn from this activity? Because this sort of helps them to also understand and get the feeling of importance, that why are they learning what they are learning, or and like those. So it's just, and when they see each other's answer and response, they feel good about, okay, this is great, this is good, we are in good direction. And those things are always important. And then I used to nudge every day with question everything, discuss with each other and all those things. So I just give you like a rough idea what I did, but again, it is just to show you what all the things there. Yeah, if you feel free to question me again, and if I can.
Jasprit, your video is on. If you want to, I don't know whether you intend to keep it on. Does anybody have any other question, like apart from this? Sagar, do you have anything to add? Like, I don't know, if you want to add anything at this point.
Is everybody mute, or I?
No, I think I have nothing to ask. I've got some idea now.
That's nice. Yes, take it lightly. I mean, this is all just to create that feeling of like why to do scientific and follow the scientific temperament.
Yeah.
Aparna, I think you have a yes.
Yeah, I have a question, Tripti. So, just to be clear, the flow of this whole scientific temperament module will be for 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
And tomorrow is my first session, so I'll be introducing the concept with them, and probably try to have them talk about what makes them curious or something. And then they'll try to find a common topic, and the group discussion will be again with me, right? In teams.
Yes. You will be part of the discussion, so that also just to see if the question that they are asking, or it's going in right direction. They are not So again, that feeling of like if they are not following some articles that are not great or not exactly giving the idea of fundamental basics, and if they are on the track, basically not following some fake news or anything like that, that's
Oh,
the so yeah.
second session on scientific temperament will be the group discussion, I think, right?
Sorry, can you ask?
The second session on scientific temperament will be their group discussion, right?
Yeah, so the first session that you're taking could be, as you said, introduction to the scientific temperament and why it is, should be done or followed, and then you give them the idea of like come up with observations. Either it can be discussed on WhatsApp if you're okay with it, or you can take a discussion session too, definitely. But if they keep doing in the group, it would be just nice so that they are engaged and slowly having this create or cultivating the habit of discussion with each other, which is very important. So even if you just nudge it and drop it, okay, let's come up with a discussion. So there would be definitely someone will start something, and it's just igniting that process of discussion among each other.
Okay.
Yeah. And slowly in the next session you can introduce the idea of how do you communicate your science, and what will you do when you pick up your one observation and work together and figure it out.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, Sapna, Mili, Hema, Jaspreet, Bhaskar ji, if you have any more questions, I mean, definitely.
I have none.
Okay.
Even I
I am
don't have
done.
any. Actually, I am running late, so I will be tomorrow. I will be discussing articulating ideas and communication. So by next week, I will be in scientific temperament.
Yeah, no worries. Take your time. It's just the idea of like they understand that's more important than how much we cover.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Amili, I think you had a question or um,
No, I just said that I don't have any.
oh, okay, sorry.
No problem.
I have not really started working on it, so right now I don't have any questions. It's good to know, learn something, but if I have any, I'll ask.
Yes, definitely. I mean, you can all shoot the questions in the mentors group, and we are always there so to respond back.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, I am also taking leave now. Thank you.
Thank you, Vaisar.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Mili.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Take care, everybody.